Northeast Tonight, brought to you by Oil India Limited, conquering newer horizons.
Hello and welcome to Northeast Tonight, the show that decodes the region. The Bodo civil society has played a key role in facilitating the signing of the recent NDFB peace accord. And with a student group like the All Bodo Students Union even going to the extent of being a signatory to the new Bodo Accord, the focus now is on the civil society and other organizations like the All Assam Students Union. The question is, will the ASU be willing to play the role of a catalyst or a facilitator in getting the Ulfa independent to the negotiating table with the government of India? Will other civil society groups in Assam like the Okhom Sahitya Sabha be willing to play a convincing and proactive role in trying to make Paresh Barua join the peace process and the government of India to agree to discuss all issues with the Ulfa independent? That is the big question. After all, like in the Bodo heartland where the curtains have actually come down on insurgency, permanent peace in Assam can be expected only when the Ulfa independent is brought under the purview of the peace process. To discuss the subject, I am joined by ASU General Secretary Lurin Jyoti Gogoi. Former Ulfa leader and writer Sunil Nath is also with me, apart from Dr. Akhil Ranjan Datta, professor at Guwahati University, head of the Department of Political Science. And besides that, we have got political analyst Swapnalil Barua and Arunav Goswami, assistant director at the Guwahati-based Center for Development and Peace Studies. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. First of all, I'd like to go to you, Mr. Lurin Jyoti Gogoi. Lurin Jyoti Gogoi, do you agree that civil society has a role in keeping the start, in helping the start of peace negotiations between the Ulfa independent and the government of India? My question is simple. Do you think ASU has a role? Do you think the civil society has a role in trying to bring or help the peace process by bringing two sides together, that is the government of India and the Ulfa independent? Lurin.
Yes, definitely. They can play a very important role in this process, and because it is very important that civil society, they can play a role to negotiate this process, because it is a very long-standing problem and issue in Assam, and we want peace in Assam, and this peace process should be initiated by somebody, especially like the civil society organization.
Right.
They can play a pivotal role in this process, and this problem, this issue should be settled very respectfully, and we want that all the civil society, they should come, and they will play a very strong and positive role in this context.
Okay, let me come to the studio, begin from my left instead of beginning from my right, although I am neither a rightist nor a leftist. Akhil Ranjan Datta, take the case of the recent Bodo NDFB Accord. An organization like APSU played a key role. That not only that, they also signed a peace agreement as a signatory. They were the cementing force. Now the question is, as I have asked ASU General Secretary Lurin Jyoti Gogoi, he said that civil society has a very big role. But is it enough to say that civil society has a big role, or will the civil society in Assam act only when they are asked by the government or the other side to do so? Can't they come forward on their own? What do you think, or what should be actually?
Need of the hour is this, that the civil society should initiate the process. It's not that civil society didn't do it, and I mentioned in one of the episodes in your channel itself that if you look back, you find that even in early 1990s, there was an effort on the part of the civil society that we should come to an end of the violence. Then we saw PCC coming in, and later on, Sonmilito Jatiyo Abhivartan. now the peace, the pro-talk Alpha group, which has been having the dialogue with the government of India, was facilitated by the civil society initiative, Sanmilito Jatiya Ovibarton,
Right.
being steered by Hiren Gohai, Hare Krishna Deka, and others. So if you go by that, not that civil society was invited to do that, civil society did it at its own. But we need to understand that Assam civil society or civil society, the greater society of Assam, cannot be equated with the civil society of the Bodo community. Now, the Bodo community has a certain amount of homogeneity, which is not the case with the greater Assamese society. Therefore,
Right.
it is very, very complex. Therefore, the initiative, initiative of the part of the civil society has to start
Okay.
with the preparations on the civil society of itself,
Right.
so as to facilitate the peace process.
Absolutely. Now, let me come to you, Mr. Sunil Nath. As Akhil Ranjan Datta has said, see, first of all, everybody seems to agree that civil society has a role. As right at the beginning, Lorinjiti Gogoi, the General Secretary of the All Assam Students Union, has said civil society has a very big role. I'm sure nobody disagrees to that fact. And Akhil Ranjan Datta is saying a very important thing. Why is this successful in Nagaland? Because the Naga society is rather homogeneous. Why is it successful, or has it become already successful in Bodo heartland? That is because the Bodos are a homogeneous society. Sunil Nath, the question now is, Assam public civil society is disjointed or fragmented. But therefore, can an organization like the All Assam Students Union or the Akhom Haitya Hoba, specifically I am naming two organizations, do you think they can, if they want to, play the role of a catalyst?
Well, yes. I do think they can, because though, yes, the civil society of Assam as a whole is fragmented. আমি অসমীয়া যদি কওঁ বহুটা বিভক্ত, but the Assamese civil society as such, Assamese civil society is quite strong and vibrant, and till a point quite homogeneous and active, and I think united on nationalist issues.
Yeah.
So, ASU and Akhom Haitya Hoba, these are organizations who, though unfortunately may not claim to be speaking on behalf of all the people of Assam, at least as far as Assamese people are concerned, Assamese nationalist sense and ethos are concerned,
Yeah.
these are the organizations who lead the show. So they have got a very crucial role, and I think these organizations can both influence Alpha, independent, and the government at the same time to come to the negotiating table and have a fruitful negotiation.
Okay. Now, Swapnil Barwa, the question now is, I'll come later, little later to Akhil Ranjan Datta with the same question. Now, you see, we are naming two organizations, the ASU and the Akhom Haitya Hoba. But the fact is that ASU at this point, they are actually having a very antagonistic approach with the Assam government because of a certain issue. Does it reduce its capability do you think if they are having an antagonistic approach on a particular issue, in this case I'm talking about the Citizenship Amendment Act, do you think they can, act positively on another issue like, bringing trying to influence or trying to play the role by a catalyst as far as bringing Alpha and the government to peace talks, or do you think that will be impossible under the circumstances?
No, I don't think it is impossible at this stage.
Because these are two different issues.
See, it is something like China and India talking. We have a border dispute that doesn't prevent us from talking on other issues like trade or developing cultural relations
Right.
and those kind of things. So the similar principle will apply here also. Here, at least ASU can take the lead in the sense that they have an all Assam spread, and they have more or less involved themselves in issues which are of public interest to the Assamese-speaking people of Brahmaputra Valley at least.
Right.
So, considering that although we think that the Assamese civil society is divided, I don't think it is divided at least to the extent of Alpha is concerned. Because the issue is common. I think every organization here in Assam, especially in the Brahmaputra Valley or even otherwise, would like the Alpha to come to the discussion table and sort out the issue. Their personal differences or personal ego clashes will not matter. It is only that someone has to take the lead and tell them that...
Someone has to take the lead.
Lead,
now,
yeah.
Yeah. Someone has to take the lead. That's a critical point. And Swapnil Barua is saying a very interesting thing, that Assamese society may be fragmented or disjointed. There is no doubt about that. But on an issue like Ulfa, Ulfa means we are talking about the issue is of peace. Bringing peace to Assam, I think there is no dispute. Everybody wants peace. Now Arnav, I'm coming to you, Arnav Goswami. The issue is, when we are saying that we are asking this question whether civil society should act on its own or whether it should wait for an invitation from either side. Now, when we talk about the People's Consultative Group, I think that was a group, it was formed at the initiative of the United Liberation Front of Assam. And government also at that point of time, prodded that there has to be some mediator. But this time around, it appears as if the government can, from the last 3 to 4 days of developments, we can say we have getting an indication as if the government will do on its own. But what do you think the role of a civil society? Do you think they can play a very important role?
Well, here I would like to cite some international examples. If you see, all the accord around the world, if you take the example of the Good Friday Agreement signed between the United Kingdom and the Northern Ireland, that time several civil society organizations were signatory to that accord. And we all know how that Good Friday Agreement became fruitful and brought peace to Northern Ireland. But if you see similar accords signed in Africa and Central America, those negotiating civil society groups, they only acted as a mediator or provided the space for talks, but were never part of the accord. And these kind of accords never took off. They were failures. So we have an example setting which shows that when the civil society group is a part of the negotiation is more fruitful, more transparent, and is more stable, and it helps in undertaking all the clauses of the accord so that they are put down on the ground. So it helps whenever the civil society's organization are part of the accord. It always helps.
It always helps. So perhaps we could see NDFB accord signed without much of a hitch. At least the issue was not in the public domain. Suddenly this accord was signed. At least there must have been a lot of negotiations going on back channel. But for the people, it appeared as if the NDFB agreement was signed all of a sudden. Therefore, perhaps the role played by the ASU has been critical. Let me now go to Lurin Jiti Gogoi. Lurin, what about ASU? If I may ask you a direct question, what about ASU? Will the ASU be able to directly play the role of a catalyst like the ASU did with the NDFB? Or can the ASU play a role? Will the ASU be interested?
See, ASU is always for the peace of the Assam, and we always want a very respectable settlement of this alpha issue, and we support this peace process. But how can we support this process? That will be discussed later on in our organization, because it is a collective issue, collective matter of the organization. Therefore, we should discuss with our organization internally, and then we can decide how we can play the role in this particular peace process.
Okay. Now, Akhil Ranjan Datta, this is a very interesting statement coming from Lurin Jiti Gogoi. He is definitely admitted that there is a role which the ASU can play, and said that, of course, obviously, it is understood that he is the General Secretary. He cannot say on a television show what kind of a role the ASU is going to play. But it is very positive coming from him, saying that they can decide or they can discuss this issue of how they can play, what kind of a role they can play within the organization. Do you think that's an interesting statement?
That's an interesting statement in the sense that ASU, remember, and you raised this question to Swapnil Barua, because ASU is in an antagonistic position, antagonistic relationship with the government of India. Therefore, can they play a role? But remember, as far as this clause 6 of the Assam Accord is concerned, on the one hand, they have been telling that clause 5 is important, clause 6 is, very much related to that, but they have been part of that. The committee constituted by Government of India. Therefore, it is not necessary that even if they are having a kind of antagonistic relationship with the Government of India on certain other issues, they cannot be a negotiator or they cannot be a mediator. This is the first point.
But ASU has been very clear that Citizenship Amendment Act and the discussions on the clause 6 or the issue of clause 6 itself are completely separate issues. Yes. Therefore, they are not. So that's the point you are making.
Exactly. Now, the other issue, what could be the ASU's role here? I think ASU can play the role as a catalyst, as a facilitator. As I said, that the negotiation process or dialogue process was facilitated earlier by other organizations, other other platform, other units like PCC and Sonmilito Jatiyo Obiborton.
Yes.
Therefore, right at the point, because everybody is looking for peace and we want to come to an end of this violence, everybody is desperately looking for this, and ASU should play a role of a facilitator, role of a catalyst. They should bring in all these platforms which had been involved in the process of, facilitating the dialogue between Government of India and Alpha.
Now, let me come to you, Mr. Sunil Nath. You were among the early Ulfa leaders to leave the organization and join the mainstream. Obviously, you had your reasons, and we are not going into that. Now, the point is, during your stay within the Ulfa, those early days, that time Hitachi Soikia was the chief minister, the party in power was the Congress. What kind of an attempt was made? Do you think the role of mediators, the civil society at that time also were interested? Those were early days of the Ulfa. Do you think a lot of people were trying to, nip this issue in the bud? In the early days, what kind of a role was played by the civil society or individuals as catalyst in those days, or there was none at that time?
No. They were all playing their roles.
We are talking about the mid-80s, right?
Yes, mid-80s.
Yes.
And especially the second of 80s when the army operations came in.
Yes.
Because before that too, some intellectuals and a section of the civil society aligned a little bit with the government, did talk about bringing our boys back into the mainstream, but those were basically hollow appeals and fell on deaf ears, obviously. But when the army operations came in and things turned serious, the common people were victimized, common people were harassed. At that point of time, I remember Parag Das and some others, including Ajit Bhuya, they played a very active role in trying to get some sort of negotiations going so that army operations can be stalled and
peace process
the people can be given a reprieve.
I think Devidas Thakur was the governor at that point. Yeah.
And Devidas Thakur too responded very positively. I remember that though he was the governor, but he responded very positively and sympathetically. Unfortunately, he was shutted out quite soon, and then later on things turned sour, but it happened. The civil society did play a role.
Now, Swapnil Barua, you see, from then, he's talking about the late 80s,
Yes.
because Operation Bajrang was the first army operation that began in 1990. Now, the question is, from then and now, from 90 and now, several peace accords have been signed in the Northeast. Okay, even after the Mizo Accord was in 1986, the TNV Accord, Tripura, was in 1988. After that, we had the 2003 was a major accord with the BLT. That has been a successful accord. After that, there was the DHD accord. There was the accord with the UPDS in Karbi Anglong and so on and so forth. And the Naga peace talks have also reached an advanced stage. So, the government of India and the state governments concerned are today a vastly experienced lot than in the mid-80s or the late 80s. Now, do you think now the government is in a position to utilize various channels? They know the mind how the rebels initiate. There has been, the NDF, two Bodo Accords, if we take the case of Assam. So, do you think the government is in a slightly more comfortable position today than they were in the early 80s or in the 80s?
I don't know about the government being in a more comfortable position or not, but the fact remains that, I think why the parleys of trying to have talks has failed is because whatever external pressure or even at the government level, whatever initiative has been taken was for the sole purpose of holding a discussion. Bringing people to the negotiating table to discuss what was not really played out on the cards.
Yeah.
Unless you have something which is that, okay, you come discuss and this is what we are likely to offer, or even in the demand list from the Alpha side, I don't think really they want a sovereign lane. That is what we simply know. But whether intricacies of what they wanted, is that option 1, option 2, okay, if they said
Correct.
that we want an independent country, that cannot be accepted by the government in power. If they said that no, in lieu of independence, you give us A, B, C, D, if that had been laid on the table, that would have made discussions much easier. And even from the civil society side, I have seen that the initiatives have only been towards bringing these people to the negotiating table, but without any substance or matter of discussion.
That was perhaps almost like a strategy of postponing peace.
Yes.
You just bring people to the negotiating table and carry on without any logical end in sight. So that strategy may or may not actually work. Let me once again go to, before coming to Arnav, let me go to Lurin Jyoti Gogoi once again. Lurin, we are talking about the role of the civil society, whether Assam Haita, Okham Haita or the ASU can play a role, or any other organization can play a role. But what has ULFA chief, ULFA commander-in-chief Paresh Barua said? He said that I am very interested in coming and joining the peace process. I am even ready to sign an accord. But the government of India must agree to discuss the core issue of sovereignty. Whether we get it or not is a different issue. But what is the harm in discussing the core issue of sovereignty? Because he says India is a mature democracy, which is correct. But the issue is whether or not the government of India will discuss sovereignty, whether or not the invitation will be to come and discuss all issues, including sovereignty. This is the key question. But what is your stand? When we take the role of the civil society vis-a-vis the stand of ULFA chief, what do you think? What is your stand? Lurin Jyoti Gogoi.
Yes, see, that will depend on the will of the central government, because this process, it is a very positive statement coming from Paresh Barua that they want to join in this peace process. Therefore, this positive initiative should be respected, and central government, they should settle, they should take initiative positively in this particular juncture, and it is totally depends on the central government how they can settle this process.
Okay, positive statement.
Can I make a point?
Yes,
here,
please make a point.
What I am again coming is that what offer will the central government make to ULFA if they want it for talks? I mean, one side is sovereignty, and the other alternative is that something, if they have to offer something on the table.
No, the question is, what Paresh Barua is asking is that, our demand is sovereignty. He is saying that even the Naga, NSC and IM did not give up sovereignty while they began talks with the government of India in 1997.
But what I feel is that no negotiation will start, and it will be difficult on behalf of the central government to really place the alternatives before the ULFA. It is, nor will the government.
I look at it in a slightly different way. The government of India today is different. They have got an absolute majority. This is a government that has taken radical steps. Some of them may not be liked by many people. Some of them are liked by people. So there are two sides to the government's initiative. But this is a government where they have scrapped Article 370 in Kashmir overnight, out of the blue. So, so if they want, considering the size of the government, considering the numbers they have, suppose they say that, okay, come forward, come for talks, we are ready to discuss all issues. Fine. ULFA will place its demand for sovereignty. The government will argue its case as to why sovereignty may or may not be given, or can or cannot be given. So these are some of the issues we will have to wait and watch. But Arnav Goswami, 2,300 rebels surrendering in a span of just 1 week. Total. First, we saw that 644 of groups, although these are some of the unknown groups, National Liberation Front of Bengalis, Adivasi Dragon Force, and so on and so forth. But 1,615 NDA rebels belonging to 4 groups, 4 factions have surrendered. So we have a total here of 2,300 rebels surrendering. Don't you think these kind of things really make an impact of those who are still not part of the peace process?
Yeah, of course, because you see, this is something which is going to put more pressure on Paresh Barua. Now, Alpha I is only the only active group present in Assam. If you consider there is no more active insurgent group in Assam, and even now Alpha Independent has very few cadres spread across few areas in Myanmar. They are being hounded by the Myanmar army. They don't have camps, and these cadres who lack food and resources are going to put pressure on their leadership that they want to join the mainstream, join their colleagues who have come and surrendered, and now with an offer from the Indian government, indirect offer from the Indian government to come for peace talks, Paresh Barua will have another pressure as well as an.
You mean to say there will be internal pressure on him to accept?
Yes.
Now or never. It may be too late later on.
And this is the best time when the civil society organization like the ASU should appeal the Paresh Barua to come forward and join the mainstream.
Okay, Ranjan Datta, how much do you think, of course, these are hypothetical questions, we cannot measure it scientifically. I mean, what kind of an impact does appeals have? Suppose tomorrow, assume, today ASU has made an appeal, ASU has made an appeal, Samujjal Bhattacharjee had made a direct appeal that yes, there should be peace in Assam, etc. and so on. Suppose, assume tomorrow, starting from Haitha Haba, all the ethnic Haitha Habas and all so on and so forth, all the Assam Haitha Haba intellectuals, leading citizens, etc., make an appeal. Do you think that cuts ice with a group like the Ulfa Independent, with a veteran insurgent leader like Paresh Barua? Do you think?
No, I don't think that only appeal will do. Look at the present negotiation, for example. That present negotiation, as I said, was facilitated by Sonnmilito Nagorik Oviborton. And Sonnmilito Nagorik Oviborton constituted a number of expert committees. And I myself was a part of that committee, and we looked at the constitutional issues. What kind of constitutional amendments may be necessary if you want to, supplement, or if you want to give an alternative to the very substance of sovereignty, for example. Those may be accepted by the government or not. That's a very different thing. There were also reports, being prepared by an expert committee on the issue of migration, economic development, and so on and so forth. Now, that preparation has helped this particular group to go in for dialogue. They can at least place those demands before that. Therefore, mere appeal will not do. I think the civil society has to be prepared itself that even if the sovereignty needs to be given an alternative meaning of it, or a kind of alternative terminology you have to use, then you have to have a certain set of demands and very substantive demands which can convince even Alpha Independent to come to the negotiation.
That is what I was trying to say, is that if you lay some demands on the table, that can be a working paper for discussions.
Exactly.
Without something, just issuing an appeal will not really reflect the minds of the Assamese people.
Absolutely.
So some document, if it is placed on a table, which we assume will reflect the desires of the Assamese people, which they expect the Alpha to negotiate on, is definitely something which will put the talks much more speedily ahead.
Sunil Nath, yesterday, our reporter was in a camp of the Ulfa Pro-Talk Ulfa group in Kakopathar in eastern Assam. Our reporter, we spoke to, normal cadres of the Ulfa Pro-Talk group. Several people were questioned, what do you think of the... Everybody said that, yes, it will be a great thing. We also want Paresh Barua to come and join the peace process. So therefore, nobody seems to be thinking, at least superficially, at least in the public domain. The Pro-Talk Alpha group seemed to be happy because Mr. Anup Chetia was himself on these talks. He said he went to the extent, you were also there, he went to the extent of saying that, he is ready to mediate. So this is a very positive sign because a lot of people will think that, if Paresh Barua joins, then we'll have to share the political space later on. So, that's not the case. At least superficially, that is not the case. So, these ordinary cadres of the Ulfa Pro-Talk saying that Paresh Barua must come for permanent peace, do you think it's a good sign?
It's a very positive sign and it's quite natural because everybody realizes that unless Paresh Barua joins the wagon won't roll. To make the wagon roll forward, he has to be on it. And he has to be, obviously, in the driver's seat. I'm not saying that he should come and join the process. I think he should come and lead the process. And it is his duty to do so.
Paresh Barua should come and lead the process. That is what Sunil Nath is saying. That is very important.
I'll give one information that even Paresh Barua's position has also been changing as far as his respect towards the civil society is concerned. When the Sonnmilito Nagorik Oviborton was organized, he was very, very critical about Hiren Guhai. There were a lot of, exchange of words. But in the recent past, we have seen he has also given a lot of statements defending Hiren Guhai's position. What I'm suggesting is that because the situation is changing fast, everybody is looking at what could be the possible future.
All right. Now I'll go for a break, but before that, one of the early thinkers of the Ulfa, that is Mr. Sunil Nath, sitting here, currently a writer and commentator. He is saying that not only he should come and join the peace process, but Paresh Barua should come and lead the peace process. On that very interesting note, I go for a short break. Viewers, don't go away. I'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. I'm going straight to you once again, Lurin Jyoti Gogoi, the General Secretary of the All Assam Students Union. Lurin, how important is, permanent peace for Assam's overall development and progress? Over the years we have seen several, this was the third Bodo Accord that has been signed, still we are talking about peace. We had seen the DHD Accord, still we are talking about the need for peace. We had seen the Karbi Accord, UPDS, still we are talking about the, need for peace. Suddenly we have seen 644 militants surrendered, still we are talking for peace. That means, I think the Ulfa independent coming over is extremely important for permanent peace. Do you agree? What is your view?
It is very, very, very important because, see, unless peace we cannot settle, we cannot develop in other aspect of the state and, and the society. Therefore, this type of issues, this type of conflict of the party with the central government should be settled in a respectable manner. And see, the common people, the student community and the youth, everybody wants a peaceful environment, and they want a situation and environment where the upliftment process of the society and the civilization can take place very positively, very strongly. Therefore, for a very strong civilization, for a strong upliftment of the society, this type of peaceful environment is very much important in Assam and entire Northeast.
Okay. Now, Arnav, you see, what we have seen over the years is that we have seen almost, every militant group in the northeastern region has several factions. There is a group in Manipur which has more than almost a dozen factions. Now, see, my question to you is, we have seen the Ulfa Pro-Talk group engaged in peace talks with the government of India for a couple of years now, but never we have heard the Pro-Talk leaders talking against the other group, that is the Ulfa independent group, or we have never heard them talking publicly against Paresh Barua. So what does it mean? And yesterday or 2 days back, when Anup Chetia was in the show, when I asked him a question whether he would like to be mediate if the government of India entrusts the responsibility, he did not, bat an eyelid to say that he was ready for mediation. So what does this indicate? What does this mean?
Well, this shows still, though a group is talking with the government, another is against it, still in some level Alpha is still unified. And when we are talking about putting front certain issues and demands in front of them, we should remember when Alpha was still unified, they had a charter of demands. Even after coming overground, the Alpha peace talks have now submitted their charter of demands to the government, which is accept sovereignty. I think the Paresh Barua group and the Pro-Talk Alpha group accept sovereignty. The set of demands should be same because they have been fighting for the same rights and same issues.
Yes.
So, if you remove sovereignty, the issue of discussion between Alpha Pro-Talk and Alpha Independent has to be same. And once this issue is cleared to the Paresh Barua via the Pro-Talk groups or via Anup Chetia personally, I think he will come forward for talks himself.
Sunil Nath, do you agree? What do you have to say? Because there is not much of a publicly, Ulfa Pro-Talk group has never spoken against the Ulfa Independent. So what does this indicate? What is the dynamics? How does it work?
Well, you see, like all factions of Alpha basically originated in the same family and familial relations remain. Not only between Anup Setia and Paresh Barua, between I and Paresh Barua, I came out in 1992. I couldn't withstand all that, I came out. But even now, I think of him as my leader. I think of him as my commander, and I want him to come and lead the show, in a practical and pragmatic manner, right. See, you can hold on to some points, you can be steadfast on some demands, and you can sacrifice a lot for those things. But does that lead to an end? Does that bring in something for the nation? If it doesn't, it's not right. Your personal ego and your responsibility as a leader towards your nation should be separated. And priority should be given to the interest of the nation and what can be achievable. Just demanding what is my right and what can be achievable are two different things.
Okay. All right. What can be demanded, what is achievable? Swapnil Barua, what is demanded, what is achievable? Now, you see, I would like to specifically give the example of the NSC and IM talks, because I have been personally, all of us perhaps, but I have been personally following this for the last, since 1997 more closely, ever since the ceasefire was signed, and from the 1st of August 1997 the talks began. Now the question is, when the NSC and IM first came and joined the peace process, no one said that, oh well, we have given up our demand for sovereignty and now we are discussing with the government of India. That was not the case. From first there was the demand for the Naga sovereignty, then they talked about Nagalim, now they are talking about various issues concerning the Nagas. There was at one point a demand for a separate flag, separate constitution for the Nagas. I am not saying that they have given up these demands. I am just saying how the focus changed from one thing to another. They might, in the core of their demand, the Nagas might still be wanting for an unified Naga homeland, or at least something which they can call their own, which is under an administrative setup. The government of India's challenge is how to juggle and come up with something like that. But therefore, what is the harm in the government if the government of India says that we are ready to discuss all issues and discuss everything, lay everything on the table and discuss? That is what discussion is all about. You cannot have a precondition saying that, oh, we will not discuss sovereignty, we will discuss everything else. Then the Paresh Barua will say, no, I will demand, we have to discuss and has to be on our demand for sovereignty, and another 10 years goes by. Do you think BJP today is in a position, in a dominant, BJP is the big political force today, it has the numbers, it has demonstrated political will in several issues, people may like it, people may not like it. Do you think now is the time for the government of India to also walk the extra mile, take the risks?
I definitely think that this is the most opportune moment where the government of India should make its first move and really take all steps to see that the discussion happens irrespective of the issues on the table. I mean, let us see the Indian independence struggle. Independence has not happened in one day. It has started since 1857 and then came to nearly 90 years in 1947. So we have to be pragmatic enough to realize that certain things are not possible politically on a certain date, but that same thing is possible after a certain lapse of time. This kind of political reality has to be assessed by the establishment and then proceeded accordingly.
Okay, now everything cannot happen overnight. Certain, Swapnil Barua used the word, it will happen with a certain lapse of time. But Akhil Ranjan Datta, how long? Because if you see the Naga peace talks, 1997 and now, it is 23 years that, how many years?
23.
Yeah, 23.
23 years that they have been discussing. Discussions are going on for 23 years. So can there be a discussion like that? Is it just a strategy of postponing peace? How do you look at it? Are you in favor of a timeline at least?
No, I cannot put a timeline, but if you look at the Naga peace process or Naga negotiation process, it cannot be said that it has not brought out anything. If you look at the society, relative peace has come. Had the negotiation process not started in 1997, things would have been extremely different, what we have been witnessing today. Therefore, you cannot say that it has to come to an end at this particular point of time. You cannot have a very regimented time frame. But it is important that negotiation process starts. And the start of the negotiation process itself brings in peace, may not be in absolute terms, but in relative terms. bombing will not be happening, killing of people will not be happening.
There will be no roadside bombings.
There will be no roadside bombing, and there will be no blockade of roads and so on and so forth. If you do not have blockade of roads, that itself brings in peace. Therefore, I think it's not necessary that you have to have a time frame, but it is important that we take the issue of peace very, very seriously.
Okay.
Wasbir, just to add to what he has said, Akhil said, once a negotiation starts, the fear of death on both sides of the warring sides, that goes away. That is the biggest achievement of any discussion. The police forces also have a fear of death, that I may be attacked or ambushed at any moment, and reversely also the insurgent groups are also under constant threat that I might be ambushed by the army. So once the negotiation starts, this at least comes to a rest, that nothing violent will happen immediately.
No, let me, Lurinjyoti Gogoi, I will have to let you go, but I have a last question to you. I will let you go. Mr. Lurinjyoti Gogoi, if the ASU wants, it can play a very positive role. There is no doubt about that. Lurin.
See, I have already said that this peace process in Assam is a very positive and welcoming one, and we always support this process. And already we had already joined in the last peace initiative taken by the renowned Hiren Gohai sir, and we have already submitted our views and all the positive efforts given by us. And in near future, we should take this process in a supportive manner, and in entire Assam, ASU and other ethnic organization, other organization of Assam, and all the civil society organization and the civil society, they can take a special role to settle this issue, such that we can accept a very respectable solution in this process.
All right, Lurinjyoti Gogoi, I'd like to thank you at this point. Thanks for participating in the program. Now, let me come to you, Arnav. We are talking, coming back to the core focus of today's discussion, today's debate, that is the role of the civil society. Can the civil society have a role in peacemaking in Assam? Now, we are talking about the Ulfa Independent. Now, if you take the case of Nagaland, several times in the last 23 years, the peace process was on the rocks. Naga Mothers Association, the church, the Naga Ho-Ho, the Naga Tribes Council, Naga Students Federation, all these people worked over time to keep the peace process on track. Otherwise, perhaps, there could have been a unilateral snapping of the ceasefire by the NSC and IM, and perhaps today its leaders would have been once again back in the jungles and the bush war would have continued. Do you think, therefore, the civil society's role is absolutely demonstrated? Nagaland is a fine example of that.
Of course, Nagaland is an example. Also, the Bodoland areas negotiation also an example. The civil societies, the organization have taken a proactive role. They have not only talked with the insurgent groups, but they had also talked at the same time with the central government as well. The example is this current accord, when the negotiators have talked with both the central government officials as well as with these insurgent groups. So similar role has to be taken by our civil society governments as well. They have to mediate, they have to talk with the central government, the state government, as well as with the Alpha Independent, so that they can come together and reach a peace deal.
At least, for the record, media reports are now saying, after the NDFB accord, that two young men actually, took the consent of the government of India. They flew to Myanmar via Bangkok, talked to the NDFB Swaragra leaders, and drove with them together via Moreh. That's how the whole thing unfolded in a couple of days. So that was what is now media reports. Of course, we will have to speak to those two young men, which we might do sooner than later. But Sunil Nath, basically, at the end, we are running short of time. What do you think is the road ahead? Do you really, because you have known Paresh Barua well, do you think this time he is going to be a different man? Do you think this time his approach, we have been always hearing this, the same demand that he has said, okay, we'll come, provided the center discusses sovereignty. But do you think this time things are slightly different? Do you think, what is your prediction or assessment, if I may use the word?
Well, you see, I think time has mellowed him down too, and I hope so. And this time, yes, after having gone through his interview, it seemed that there is a genuine desire for negotiating peace with the government of India. He wants to come one step forward, provided the government of India also reciprocates it. And let's hope, let's keep our fingers crossed. And I know that the entire Assam, people of Assam would be behind him if he comes forward, and the government of India would also earn enormous goodwill with the people of Assam if somehow this 3 decades, 4 decades long chapter can be brought to an amicable end.
We can have a master shot. That is what basically. Okay. Now, Sunil Nath, basically, Swapnil Barua. What Sunil Nath is basically saying that this time things could be totally different. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely. I think the opportune moment has come, and as I have been saying, that if we lose this chance, we may not get this chance again, because the entire atmosphere in Assam or the Brahmaputra Valley or throughout Assam maybe is that it is for peace, it is for negotiation, it is for talks, and if this atmosphere is not carried forward, I think we'll again lose some time, again this atmosphere to build up, again social pressure will come, again the issue will go out of public eye and interest, means that you'll have to start from scratch again. So I feel that all negotiating sides must immediately come and start parleys as fast as they can.
Arunav, basically, do you think this time it is different, or do you think it is again boiled down to rhetorics and it will fade away sooner than later?
No, I think this time the signs are better. You see, most of the groups have come overground. When Alpha independent cadres are coming overground, surrendering, so losing of cadres, pressure from Myanmar army, and appeals from the civil society in Assam, intellectuals from Assam, as well as offer from Anup Setia, a former colleague, to come to join talks. The Paresh Barua may soon come overground and join the peace talks.
Now, Akhil Ranjan Datta, the issue is we have a very senior Assam minister first making an appeal through the media. Within hours, Paresh Barua giving an interview. Lot of indications there, positive. Again, a senior Assam government minister saying that we have taken cognizance of the interview. We will discuss it when the Prime Minister comes on the 7th of February. So things are already seems to be moving. It has already, if the Prime Minister comes on 7th as scheduled, if the Assam Chief Minister discusses the issue with the Prime Minister as promised, that means the issue has already reached the level of the Prime Minister. Okay.
Yeah, I am not that optimistic about all this, but the things are moving. I think things are moving, and therefore I also believe that it is an opportune moment, and the civil society should play a vital role. But when we talk about civil society, we shouldn't be confined to only a few organizations. For example, we have been talking about ASO. ASO is a credible organization, I have no doubt about it. But also look at Srimanta Shankardev Sangha. It's a huge organization.
Right.
And it has a huge, it doesn't
huge
have a
following. Huge following.
It doesn't have a political agenda. And there is also acceptability on the part of the people regarding its role. You have Ahom Jatiyotawadi Yuva Chhatra Parishad.
Ahom Hotra Mahasabha.
Ahom Hotra Mahasabha, you have erstwhile PCG, you have Sanmilita Jatiya Abhivartan, I have already talked about. Even university community, teaching community, academic community,
Sporting
everybody
community.
has an important, journalist means media community, everybody has an important role to play here. We have to come out with a common minimum agenda.
Sunil, how do you channelize this various possibilities into a coherent voice which can actually help the peace process? How to channelize? So, okay, Akhil Ranjan Datta has named the Hotra Hankadev Hanga. There is the Hotra Mahasabha. We are talking about Asu and Ahom Haitawaba. Then Swapnil Barua is talking about the sporting fraternity. It's fine, all fine. It's very easy to say. But how do you channelize this into a coherent voice? Is it necessary to bring all these groups together to lend their voice from a united banner?
That was what exactly I was visualizing. Like someone like Dr. Hiren Guhai perhaps might take the initiative in getting all the people and organizations, whom we call national organizations, together and can perhaps some sort of platform like the Nagahoho can come up, which can also reach out to the Alpha, hear out what they have to say, and take that across to Government of India.
Okay.
Something like that can happen.
Can happen. But Arnav, it is easier said than done, because several of these organizations and individuals have been extremely bitter critics of the government, because we have to be absolutely pragmatic, because statecraft doesn't, okay, we will be totally antagonistic on one issue and suddenly, out of the blue, you will become the government's mediator. So do you think it is practical to even think on those lines, or do you think we have to choose, the mediators also have to be chosen carefully? Do you think that will work, or do you think just as pick and choose things doesn't work in this kind of situations?
I think as Akhil Datta sir has earlier said, so there are certain issues on which they are against the government, but when the issues comes of this kind of a thing, I think all the organization will agree to unite together and also ready to mediate with the state government as well as central government. I think
last words to you, Okhiranjan Datta, 20 seconds.
I think there are people who are respected by the greater society. There may be antagonistic relationship with the government.
Right.
Hiren Gohai's name has been mentioned. Nagen Soikia is there. Homen Borgohai is there. Nirupama Borgohai. Orup Kumar Datta is there. There are certain people who appears to be very neutral. They are not the bitter critic of the government. If we can bring them together, and if they initiated the process, things will definitely move. And I am in mid 40s now, and I am looking for my future, my children's. We have suffered a lot. I do not want my next generation to suffer. Everybody has a responsibility. I think if we act in a responsible manner, I can be a bitter critic of the government, but I'll also be a part of this process.
Absolutely, very well said. The need of the hour is for everyone to act responsibly, and I would add reasonably. So these are the two things: act responsibly and reasonably. There is no reason why peace, or for that matter permanent and lasting peace, does not unfold in Assam. On that note, I end this edition of Northeast Tonight. I'd like to thank all my panelists for participating in today's discussions, and the viewers for watching the program. Good night and goodbye.
Northeast Tonight, brought to you by Oil India Limited, conquering newer horizons.